Okay, hi everyone. Hopefully you can hear us okay. My name's Chelsea. I'm a prospective student advisor here at Flinders, and this is Emily, a current education student. So thank you for joining us today for our education webinar. So today we'll basically introduce you to the range of different courses that we have available at Flinders, and go through some of the entry pathways as well if you're needing some backup options. But if you have any questions at all throughout any of the slides, please feel free to use the chat function to ask any questions, and you can either do that to the group or privately to us. So hopefully you can hear us okay, but I will just hand over straight to Emily.
Beautiful. So hi everybody. Like Chelsea said, my name's Emily. I'm a final year student here at Flinders. So very excited to graduate at the end of this year and move on. But to start with education, we wanted to consider the other side of the classroom. So we do have a range of students here at Flinders Education who include those who've come straight from school and those who are adult entrants. But regardless of what background you're coming from, it's worthwhile to consider the other side of the classroom. So if you were a student at school, why is it that you want to become a teacher? And vice versa for those who are applying as adult entrants, what motivates you? So there are a range of different things that motivate people to become an educator, whether that's to provide opportunities to young people, whether it's to foster a love of learning or develop academic rigour, or just to have some fun and work to develop some relationships. So there are some great opportunities available at Flinders, but I'm going to start by just talking a little bit about myself and how I got here. So my particular degree that I'm studying is the Bachelor of Education Secondary combined with the Bachelor of Health Science. So at Flinders, if you're looking to become a secondary PE teacher, this is the degree that you need to do. For myself specifically, however, I've chosen to major in English, so major in health and minor in English. So essentially that means with my university topics, I'll teach health to a year 12 level and English to a year 10. We might touch on it later, but just to keep in mind that with your majors and minors, that doesn't preclude you from possibly teaching other things down the track. That simply means that they're your areas of specialisation and preference in working in a school. So for myself, thinking about that idea of motivation, I reflect on my time at high school where I had some fabulous educators who served as a real source of inspiration for me. I've also had some fabulous opportunities throughout my time here at university and in high school to visit some remote communities where the same level of education that I got simply doesn't exist. So that has been a real source of inspiration for me to provide a quality education to those who may not otherwise get it. So looking at what is teaching, we're looking at some really key areas of lesson content as well as the curriculum, cognitive development and the way in which people learn, which is something that I've found quite interesting throughout my degree. Behaviour management's obviously a really key one, but not necessarily just looking at the negative behaviours, but evoking positive behaviours and involvement in classroom learning. And most importantly, we're looking at the way in which we're preparing young people for life beyond school. So really for secondary teachers specifically, what are we going to do for our students and with our students to get them ready to move into their next stage of life? All right, so I'll hand back over to Chelsea now just to talk a little bit about the degrees here at Flinders.
Thanks, Em. So as you may have seen already, there's quite a list of education degrees that you can choose from here at Flinders. We've got the biggest suite within South Australia for you to choose from, which does allow you to really personalise your degree and target towards what age level, but also what teaching areas you would like to specialise in. So overall, it's probably easiest to summarise the two different structures in terms of either doing an undergraduate double degree, which will take you 4 years, or there's a different structure that we offer depending on your preference, where you can do typically a 3-year undergraduate degree first, and then go on to the 2-year Masters of Teaching. So it's really up to personal preference. With both, you would still qualify to register as a teacher, so it's really up to your personal preference and how you're wanting to structure your degree. So sometimes when students are having a little bit of trouble deciding which degree to choose, a good place to start is looking at what age level you would like to work with. So we have 3 different choices that you can choose from at Flinders. The first is early childhood, so looking at birth to 8. So this would cover and qualify you to teach both in early learning and kindies and things like that, right through to junior primary. And there's a few different combinations that you can include within that, either with a Bachelor of Arts, special education and disability studies. So if you're looking at doing the younger year levels, then you would choose one of the early childhood degrees. If you're wanting to specialise in primary school, we have another few degrees for you to choose from. So this is looking at primary aged students, so from reception typically to year 7. So sometimes you'll find that you would cross over in some middle schools as well, depending on how the schools are structured. So this degree you can combine either with a Bachelor of Arts or Special Ed and Disability Studies, or you've got an extra option with this one where you can focus on general science. And the third age group you can choose from is secondary, which is what Emily's studying. So this is covering year levels within middle school and secondary, and you can choose 2 teaching specialisations within this one, and you also have a bit of a wider range of degrees to combine this one with as well. So arts, science, health sciences, languages, or special ed and disability. So this one has quite a few more options for you to choose those teaching areas within. So this screen is just a really good summary of what type of structure and what type of education degrees at Flinders you might be considering. Assuming most of our audience listening is a Year 12 applicant and may have an ATAR to use as a selection rank, either from this year or from previous years. So we've kind of listed them here in order of competitiveness. So at the very top we have, if you have completed, achieved a ATAR of 95 and above, you have guaranteed entry into the bachelor degree that is linked with a master's degree as well. So that's a 5-year program, and I'll go through what those options are shortly. If your ATAR is around 70, then you're probably looking at being competitive, if not qualifying for guaranteed entry for the double degrees that we have. So, for example, Emily's degree, so the Bachelor of Education secondary with Bachelor of Health Sciences. If you have a lower ATAR and say between 60 and 70, we have some backup options for you as well. So these are options that you can use as preferences lower down in your application, and you can use these programs as pathways into one of the other 2 types of degrees that I mentioned that have the more competitive entry rank. So there's either a 3-year Bachelor of Arts that you can complete and then go into a 2-year Masters of Teaching, or there's the 1-year pathway degree as well, which I'll go through in a bit more detail afterwards. So going from that top of the page and just breaking it down a little bit more for you, this is the really competitive program. So the ATAR or selection rank of 95 and above, you will qualify for guaranteed entry into any of these programs here. So we have these programs designed so that they're fully integrated 5-year qualifications, and you do the teaching units right throughout the 5 years. So there's, again, quite a few different choices that you can choose from. And then in addition to this, once you graduate from the Bachelor of Arts, for example, with the Masters of Teaching, if you wanted to go on and study for another 6 months, you could complete a second master's degree, which usually would take 1 to 2 years. So by only adding another 6 months on, you could complete a second master's degree in education. And these types of master's degrees can specialise on wellness and well-being, or special ed, or high achievers. There's a whole suite of different more leadership-based master's degrees that you can have then alongside your teacher registration master's qualification as well. The double degrees, so these are probably the most popular choice. I think mainly because students appreciate the flexibility within the majors and minors to choose from. So with the Bachelor of Arts, you can access this either through teaching any of those age groups that we spoke about earlier, early childhood, primary or secondary. And you can also combine special ed and disability and focus on supporting students with disabilities or special needs through either of those age groups as well. If you're interested in science, and probably all heard that there's a huge STEM focus within both primary schools and secondary schools at the moment, you can choose to specialise in science within primary school through one of our double degrees as well. And then moving on to secondary, you can either combine with a Bachelor of Health Sciences, Languages, or Science, as well as those top two as well. So if you're interested in Health Science, Languages, or Science, I guess the other way of saying it is that you can only combine these with the secondary age group. But please, if you are unsure about which teaching specialisations you can access through these degrees, please let us know what you have in mind, and we'll let you know the best combination for you to have that flexibility to teach within those your preferred areas. So going down that list earlier, this is the Bachelor of Arts pathway to Masters of Teaching. So essentially you're made an offer into the Bachelor of Arts with a conditional offer into the Masters of Teaching. So you need to achieve a certain grade point average for you to transition into the Masters of Teaching throughout your Bachelor of Arts. But this model is built more like a 3-year Bachelor of Arts degree, so you don't do any education specific topics just yet. And then on successful completion of that and achieving the right grade point average, you then go on to the 2-year Masters of Teaching program, and then that's when you focus on all of your education topics. So these are the programs listed on the screen here that are structured as a 3+2 model. And finally, you should definitely include this degree in as one of your lower preferences. So this degree, students don't really complete as such as a 4-year degree. They complete the first year, and then again on successful completion of that first year and achieving a particular grade point average, you can then transition into second year of either a primary or secondary education degree combined with the Bachelor of Arts. So essentially it's a bit more of a supported first year program, and then you jump into second year of, say, the Bachelor of Education primary with the Bachelor of Arts as an example. So if you have any questions on how that works, or if you're a bit confused, please let me know, and we'll do our best to explain it as best as we can. But essentially, if you're thinking about either specialising in either primary or secondary, we definitely like you to ensure that you have one of these pathway courses lower down in your preferences. And finally, separate from your undergraduate pathway, there's also the Masters of Teaching courses that you can apply for separately as well. So if you're perhaps tossing up between doing another degree that's not within the teaching suite at Flinders, say for example you might be considering doing our Sport, Health and Physical Activity degree, then please keep in mind that you do still have that option after you complete that 3-year bachelor to add on and apply for the Masters of Teaching to get your teacher registration. So another example is our new course in outdoor education within our sport degree that's launching next year. So if you wanted to complete that first and be an outdoor ed instructor, that's fine. You can even go and work as an outdoor ed instructor for a few years if you would like to first. And then you can always come back and apply for the Masters of Teaching if you wanted to get your outdoor ed teaching registration and teach it in schools as well. So I'll pass over to Emily to cover off on more of the structure of the degrees and some of the placement information.
Beautiful. So just a little bit of content about what being a full-time student is like, particularly within a double degree. So I know there can be a lot of confusion, and we find that some people come and ask us, is a double degree double the work? And we're here to say that it isn't necessarily. So the way that a double degree works, particularly with those undergraduate combined degrees, which Chelsea mentioned, is that the degree is simply 4 years instead of 3. So it's the same course load as a singular degree, however, it just takes an extra year in duration. And now this, what you can see on the screen, is an old example of my timetable. So I'm a full-time student, I have been my whole degree, and you can see that that definitely isn't the same as a full-time work commitment. So in education here, generally for a student, if you're doing a combined degree, you'll have approximately 2 education topics per semester, a teaching minor topic and a teaching major topic, which will come from your other degree. So if that's arts, or if that's science or health sciences, and then you'll have your placement topic as well. So these are really good opportunities, particularly if you're choosing a combined degree, to study areas that you're really passionate about and interested in, and you can learn from fabulous educators and teachers that really know their stuff. So really good way to embrace education by learning from those who are best. Now, moving forward, placements are a very big part of our Flinders degrees and are a requirement for registration as a teacher. So at Flinders, we offer over 80 days of professional experience in your degree, and they occur in 2nd, 3rd and 4th year. So with that, you can do placements in metropolitan and regional South Australia. But you can also do interstate placements. So I did a placement in the Northern Territory. I have peers who've done placements in rural Victoria. So there is flexibility if you are passionate about doing a placement elsewhere to try to coordinate that, particularly if you're from the country and looking to go back home to do a placement. Now, with relation to placements, I guess from a more personal perspective, I think these are a really good way to establish if the teaching profession is just quite for you, particularly if you've never spent time in a school except from being a student. So I've found that this is a really rewarding experience. So I've completed all my placements now and have had some great mentors and classes and have certainly learned a lot from the time that I've spent in schools. So this has been a really valuable part of my professional development, as with a lot of my other education peers. And you can put your theory into practice. So you learn a lot of theory at university and a lot of educational rules and things to apply. But it's not until you actually get out there and you give it a go that you learn out the areas, find out the areas that you are strong in and perhaps the areas that you need to work on a little bit more. So we're going to look at some of the entry requirements now, which Chelsea touched on earlier.
Thanks, Em. Excellent. And in the meantime, while I go through this, if you've got any questions 4M, please feel free to use the chat function. So basically you'll see on all the web pages and things 2 scores generally in regards to a Year 12 selection rank. So this will be a competitive rank and also a guaranteed entry rank. So these are just approximate scores here on the screen for the competitive, but the guaranteed entry requirements should be the ones that you're aiming for. And when you get your results at the end of the year, so for South Australian Year 12 students, that's the 18th of December, please give us a call because your adjustment factors, also known as bonus points, won't be added onto that just yet. So we can work that out for you and let you know whether you qualify for guaranteed entry or not. But if you have a SATAC application in already and a preference for an education course at any university, then you would have had to have already submitted your teaching capability statement. So I won't go through this too much because you've probably already done it, but just bear in mind that this is an unassessed piece, so don't stress too much about it. It's to check that your intentions are right and that you have an understanding of what teaching entails. So again, you've probably submitted this already, but just in case anyone's watching who hasn't submitted a SATAC application or submitted it without having an education preference in your application, these are the questions that you will be asked to answer as part of your capabilities statement. So what you think teaching involves, the personal and academic qualities that you possess that would allow you to be an effective teacher, and also describing your attitude and learning. And they really are looking for examples here, not just statements. They really want you to back this up with some examples. So I have one more slide left after this. So again, just a reminder, if you have any questions before we go, just pop them through the chat function, either publicly to everyone if you like, or you can send a private chat. But just to refresh you on the application dates through SATAC, so the first closing date is this Friday, 11:59 on Friday, and then there's also a late closing date on the 3rd of December. So this is what we call the equal consideration deadline. So please ensure that you have your preferences in and ordered as best as you can by that date. Please also make sure you have your teacher capability statement entered by this date as well to be considered for the main January offer round. But SATAC are actually trialling a new offer round this year on Thursday the 20th of December. So this is 2 days after the SACE students receive their results. And this will mainly be for students who have met guaranteed entry in their first preference. So if you haven't received an offer by this date, please don't panic at all. The main offer round is still on the 15th of January. But if they've been able to, SATAC have been able to assess all the teacher capability statements and you tick the box with your selection rank being above the guaranteed entry score, it might be a good idea just to check your email on Thursday the 20th of December to see whether there's an offer there or not yet. So if you have any questions, I can see a couple of questions there. We'll turn the camera and the microphone off shortly, and we'll get back to you there shortly. But if you have any other questions or wanted to chat with us over the phone, please don't hesitate to give us a call. But thank you so much for joining us today, and we wish you all the best, and thank you, Emily, for your help as well. We will stay on the chat function, but we'll just switch off the camera and the mic now. So thank you and have a good day.